Good morning, it is Talking Reds. It is Talking Reds with NordVPN. Thanks a lot to them for partnering with us of this run of Talking Reds. We do really appreciate it, and I also appreciate the company of Mo Stewart and Neil Atkinson. And I think Arne Slot will appreciate that the Reds are playing again tonight. I think he'll be wanting to sort of put it right. You would have thought, and so I think footballers, if they have a bad day at the office, managers, if they have a bad day at the office, Neil, you know, they say they want to put it right quickly, and that very much was on Saturday, and so I'm hoping to see them ready to go.
I want them to play Sunday, but there's rules and regulations. Alison Becker wouldn't have liked it. I want them to play Sunday. I think they do need to get that out of the system a little bit tonight. To be clear, it's, you know, they're a good side, Milan. You could go through the list of players they're likely to pick. I like Abraham a great deal. Yeah. I think he's almost like many goals. He has many goals. I think he's almost like a prototype version of Darwin Núñez. And what I mean by that is I think he gets criticised for missing chances, understandably and at times correctly, but also a lot of the chances he ends up getting are because of his own movement and his own ingenuity. And often therefore mean he's in a bit of a funny body position or things like that by the time he's sort of muddled through. I think he's a good player. Obviously Leao is highly vaunted and much rated in there as well. I've always liked Loftus-Cheek, and he's the sort of player we don't like. So it's a funny thing to say, to be desperate to get back playing in the knowledge that we're coming up against a really good side with good players who will take a bit of sorting out. You know, there's every chance we're on back-to-back no wins at the very least because of what's happened at the weekend. You've got to roll with the punches on that one, but I think getting to perform, I think, is the main thing, and that's the opportunity for them.
You watch football, though.
I do.
Are they any good?
Well, it's funny because Milan had been having a bit of a sticky season up to this point. There'd been a lot of talk about how they hadn't won a league game. They didn't win any of their first 3 league games. Paolo Fonseca was under pressure. And then they played Venezia and they're 4-0 up after half an hour. And suddenly everything's looking rosy and they can start to turn the motor down. So, as in terms of preparation for a big week, because it's not just us, by the way, they've got the derby next weekend. So it's 2 games that they're looking at that would have defined their season. If that game against Venezia doesn't happen and then they don't win either of those 2 games, Fonseca could be out. So they were really at that precipice, but in the same way how one result can change everything for us, and it feels like it has, it's gone the other way for them. So the game's going to be tougher. Milan fans are going to be turning up with a bit more confidence. They're going to be wanting to make it more difficult for us, having in the context of what we've just done. But like Neil says, I do think that this is actually going to help, because I think that we're going to have our concentration sharper, our mind sharper, hopefully our physical bodies sharper to be able to go out there and attack this really tough chance.
It's an interesting one from the point of view of us not quite knowing what, we know what a good result is. A good result is Liverpool win, but in the context of the tournament itself and how it's going to work, it is all fairly new. We're learning. The number of games has caused, a bit of a consternation. Alison Becker talked about it last night in the press conference. I know you guys talked about it in press conference extra, which is excellent. I've listened to the first half of it, the Alison Becker bit.
There's a lot of it. Such portions.
Listen, if Andy Haynes got a chance to talk about goalkeepers, he will do it. He was sort of jumped all over it. But yeah, encourage everyone to listen to press conference extra where they talked about it in a lot more detail than what we're going to on the tour app. But he did sort of mention it, from a footballer's point of view. But there's also a case of, I think, for everyone, we were joking over WhatsApp last night, what about the podcasters? Who's thinking about us? Who's getting us around the table? But something I found out this morning, I read, wouldn't necessarily know, but it's miles from a sellout, this. So it's a big stadium. It's 75,000, the San Siro. I think they've sold 55,000 tickets. So they might be a bit of a walk-up. There might be Liverpool fans who've gone over who find themselves sort of in the Milan end, but they're not. It's a million miles away from sellout, because they're probably looking at it and thinking, well, they've got the derby at the weekend. There's all these sorts of big games coming up, and also there's all these games just to get to sort of the sort of exciting bit, and so fans are picking and choosing, and that's an issue for most fans. I know you spoke to Tom Fahey a lot recently about the Villa situation. They've bumped the prices up. I think there'll be games that don't sell out at Villa Park, and so it's an interesting one from a fan point of view, isn't it? That we talk about the player overload, but supporters can't do everything either, both financially and just time.
Yeah, and also sort of mentally as well.
Yeah.
People might choose to check in and out a little bit. I think it's. I think the thing with the format and the format shift, I'm in favour of any format shift. My running joke is I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world as if they came up with 8 formats. put them all in a big drum in June, pulled one out and went, right, this season it's straight knockout. And not least because I think one of the things that happens is that
maybe that's how you bring back the FA Cup.
But one of my big things is that because I think that one of the things that you've ended up doing is the way the previous format was, and it was 30 years. To sort of understand 30 years, if you go back 30 years before the start of the Champions League, Shankly hasn't won a title at Anfield yet. He hasn't won the league title at Anfield yet. That's how long 30 years is. So there's been 30 years, and there has been some format changes in there. There was the year where there was 2 group stages.
That was awful.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was. But you could make an argument that it should be knockout until you get down to 16, and then you go to 4 groups. Because you'll really get high quality and real tension, and you can do loads and loads of arguments as to what you could do and how it could work. And I think that I talked at length with Jonathan Liu about it, and I think part of what this is I think they want the idea of big teams playing each other, but not in a way that means that they're going to genuinely eliminate each other. Now that could happen up to a point when you get to game week 7 and game week 8, or at least undermine each other's seasons massively. But there's a bit of me, and Mo likes the US sport, there's a bit of me that isn't against that in and of itself. And what I mean is, we're trying to still work out where the balance is with this, but there's a lot to be said for really good sports people playing each other as a sport before you put the jeopardy in, if you see what I mean. That quite literally the name's in Test cricket. It's the idea that you're testing yourselves against one another. There isn't really, there isn't a test. Well, in fact, there is now. They've very recently introduced one. But for literally 100 years of cricket, there wasn't a Test World Championship or anything like that. It was just we've got a sense as to who the best team is because they play each other, and you can sort of go, it's Steve Waugh's Australia.
That's going to beat everyone else.
Yeah, is the way in which it worked. But and this isn't me being sort of in any way airy-fairy about it. I think. And it's funny because we've just done weekend there talking about Arsenal and talking about Tottenham and talking about how much these games mattered, and it was game week 4 in, and that now in the Premier League, because every game just feels like a matter of life and death, it's almost difficult to get out of that mindset, John, I think, for people. And this might not achieve that. We'll see how it goes, and no one who's got a genuine ambition of being genuinely successful this season will want to finish between 9th and 24th, because they won't want the jeopardy of the 2 extra games being dropped in and the obligation that it causes. And I think that's a missed beat as well when people are talking about it, because everyone's just a bit like, oh well, it'll just be more games and the better sides will win. Well, they better had, because if they try to, if Liverpool finish 11th and they get the team that are 20th, I mean, I think that potentially could theoretically be Villa. And then we've got a 2-legged affair against Villa, who last season got the better across their 4 league games of Man City and Arsenal. Well, that's not going to be easy and straightforward. So, I think there's still more to it than meets the eye, and I understand why there's a bit of cynicism and scepticism around it. But I also think that the best of all worlds, in a way, is getting the best players to play against each other. It's sort of what you should want, and not everything does need to be terminal. And I think we've sort of talked ourselves into that as well, sort of as a sport. I just think it being different. I think that sides have worked out the previous one. I think that there was too many, especially when you've got City win 4 leagues out of 5, Bayern, until you get to last season, have won so many leagues. They were always seeded first. Paris Saint-Germain, you expect them to win the league. Real Madrid, you expect them to win the league. So we're already naming our first seeds, if you see what I mean.
And then they're walking through the groups.
They're just walking through the groups. And then, City endlessly getting fucking Leipzig going, oh, we've got this time around. And you're a bit like, well, how does that keep happening? But they can't get it. If Arsenal are a second seed, City couldn't get Arsenal, and they'd probably be the best of the second seeds or in the top sort of 3. And you just end up in this, go on.
I think it's the repeat games year in, year out that's part of what's been the tipping point, because the whole point of the jeopardy of groups is that if you're a big team, you might be playing a team who you don't play very often, a Shakhtar Donetsk or a Red Star Belgrade, or you're like, oh, actually, going away to them is pretty difficult. But if you're playing them every year, then you've kind of worked it out, and you don't really need to, you're not scared of it in the same way you used to be. So I think there did need to be some change. I think the fascinating part for me is how over the years of coming, we shake out we're not playing both teams home and away. And it's the luck of the draws. Do you get this team at home or do you get them away? And whether or not there's some variance between certain teams being luckier with their home versus away draws and against others. Because I think that could be the big variable here. Like, we're talking about this Milan game, and it's very important because it's the first game of the campaign. it's also our toughest away game. So I think.
Do you think it's tougher than Leipzig?
I do think it's tougher than Leipzig, and I only think that it's. I mean, Leipzig have started better than I thought they would, but I think that Liverpool against Leipzig are going to have an advantage in as much as that it doesn't offer any kind of. We know exactly what they're going to do. We know exactly how they're going to play. We've studied Leipzig a lot because we bought so many of their damn players. So I think that there's a certain element to that which will help us. This one is trickier because I think it's early in the season. It's a team who can be a little bit up and down, but have got so much attacking threat. But you also look at it and think, okay, if we win this game, then we set ourselves up perfectly.
Yeah.
But we don't know how many of the away games we need to win, because normally in the old format it was win your home games, win one away, and you're sorted. Well, 2 of our home games are pretty freaking tough, so it's like, how many of the away ones do we now need to win? And that the jeopardy of not knowing, that's kind of what UEFA need at this stage of the season. It's that we can't predict. You have to kind of work out. You have to play it out.
I think the jeopardy, what's for me, and this is the thing. Ultimately, Liverpool's last 2 are Lille at home and PSV away, and I just feel a little bit like if Liverpool need to get 6 points, they should be able to get 6 points from those 2. I think that's Liverpool's. For me, that's the safety. That's the what's the metaphor I'm using here? The rubber ring, the life belt. That's the one. Life jacket. Good God, that was hard. There is a. I think that's your main thing here, is that Liverpool, whatever so I think we're in but this is where, again, the flip side of this stuff matters, because it's very easy to be a smart arse, i.e. me, and say this sentence, well, it could be, John, that Liverpool versus Real Madrid is actually the most pointless game in the phase for Liverpool from Liverpool's point of view. But when it comes, we and they, the players and the club and Real Madrid, by the way, will all be like, no, we're not fucking standing for this. We want a result in this one, because everyone's got personal and professional pride. And also they might think to themselves, and if you're Real Madrid, you'd be thinking, you know what, we might get Liverpool in a semi or a final. We need to stay in their fucking heads. We're in their heads. We don't want to let them have an easy one. And we'll be saying to ourselves, we might get Real Madrid later on. We need to sort this out. Yes. We need to stop letting these take the piss out of us. We need to win this. So you can do that. Yes, John, it might well be that by the time we get there, the Real Madrid game is, and I am as guilty of that, if not more guilty of that than anyone by the book. But the truth of it is that football is of the blood and the bone, and it grabs you and it moves all the way through in patches. And saying that is not the same. So I can do the thing with Jonathan and we talk it through and we say, well, they might be big games, but they might not have this meaning on them. The act of Liverpool playing Real Madrid in a football match imbues it with meaning. The meaning comes as part of the package, and that's what UEFA's argument is. So it may well be that Liverpool give their all in that game against Real Madrid. Something then goes a bit wrong against Girona, and we need the life belt. And now the jeopardy comes in those last 2 games, and suddenly Lille are rocking up, and suddenly they'll go 1-0 up, and feels like, oh God, what are we going to do? And then we turn it around, and then we all feel it, and the rush comes. But we don't know yet because we haven't lived one. But what I do think is it will feel a big deal when Xabi brings Leverkusen.
Yeah.
The meaning will come. Liverpool would not last season have had a group stage where they played Milan away, where they played Milan, Leverkusen and Real Madrid. It wouldn't have happened. So we've got that before you start to have the conversation about what you think of Leipzig, what you think of Girona, what you think of Bologna, what you think of the last 2. Even PSV, they are the Dutch champions and they do appear to score 9 goals a game whenever I look them up. But I think it's not. As I say, I understand why the scepticism, and I also think that the players play too much games, and I also think that the distribution of the money needs to be better and more fair across UEFA as a whole, and I think that these are long-term problems. But I also think that this might just be a better way of doing it than the one that existed. There might be another better one, and if someone wants to make a really strong argument for just play straight knockouts, I'll roll with it. But then what I would say is just play straight knockouts and effectively distribute the money completely evenly. So even if you go through, you don't get any more money, the glory's in the winning.
Something I've got a bit of a, not cob on with, but it's a little bit of a shame is the idea of the sort of the match games, which they've sort of always done. But I'd quite like to watch Aston Villa in the Champions League. I'm not going to be able to at any point because they always kick off the same time as Liverpool.
Is that true? Is it?
Yeah. So it's a bit of a shame. Like I feel like with all these games they could have sort of mixed it up a little bit. But Aston Villa are going to consistently kick off. Apart from the one where there's a 5:45, I might be able to sort of double header with that. But I don't know. Just as a minor quite.
That's a blow.
Yeah. I mean that's one of of the negatives of the old system that they've carried over as well.
Yeah,
they always used to do.
Oh yeah. That's not new, but it's just annoying in this instance because it's a new team in the Champions League, and I'm interested to see how they get on.
Yeah,
but I'll have to do it in a highlight format.
I mean, the last game is going to be wild. I still haven't worked out what my strategy is going to be for that when they all kind of play at the same time. But yeah, it's a shame because obviously a debutant team like Villa. I say debutant in the Champions League. Obviously, they are European champions. If there's any Aston Villa fans watching, but a debutant in the Champions League format. That's always one of the more exciting things, particularly when it's an English team. Particularly, we know that they've got the quality, and when they've got games like a game against Bayern Munich, that'll be obviously be a massive. That's a repeat of the '82 Cup final. A game against Celtic, that'll be massive. Yeah. And some of those games, like you say, you'd want to see. And yes, you can kind of watch them on replay eventually, whatever. But it's not quite the same as experiencing them while they're happening. Although, all that said, I am still a fan of the Goals Show. Like, the Goals Show is my jam. Like, watching 7 games at once feels like it was invented specifically for me. So I'm probably going to be doing that as often as I possibly can.
Yeah, well, there we are. Well, loads more looking ahead to this Champions League game on the Tour app. And so if you download that, you'll get press conference extra, which I mentioned, which the lads did late last night after the press conference because it took place at 6:30 in Milan. So that is available now. There's also a returning show, a pre-match meal, where we go to restaurants in town. We can't necessarily be at all these games, but we went to the fantastic Casa Italia, which is one of the best Italian restaurants in Liverpool. Went there, me and Keo, and previewed the game over some lovely Italian meats. Not bad at all. And then also there'll be, obviously straight after the game, we are doing our post-match content as well. We are doing that from Gravity Max. So if you fancy watching the game in Liverpool City Centre tonight, come along to Gravity Max and watch it with us. And then also you get the added bonus of either watching a post-match pint or the post-match show live. We're going to do both of them in Gravity Max. So thanks a lot to them for inviting us down. Really looking forward to it. So if you want to come down, have a beer with us, watch AC Milan versus Liverpool tonight, you are more than welcome. But keep an ear out if you're not around tonight, but are for maybe future ones. We're looking to do things before the home games there in the afternoon, and maybe watch the away games in there as well. So there'll be other opportunities, but hopefully we'll see a few of you there tonight. But that's not the only opportunity people have to look at people from the Anfield Wrap, because you're taking the book on the road.
I am, but we're doing post-match pint for free, aren't we, as well tonight?
Oh,
after the match from Gravity Max. So
there you are. So for you YouTube people, which is all of you.
But as part of the hookup with Gravity Max, and we're really pleased to be working with them. John's been talking to them for an extended period of time. So as part of us being there tonight, we're going to be putting post-match pint out for free afterwards. So if you've always been wondering what a post-match pint is or what it's about, you're going to get to see one tonight at Gravity Max. There are reports that we're going to do it live on a go-kart. They are incorrect.
John's filming.
That might be result dependent.
They are incorrect.
Get them little headsets to the use of the F1.
I'll be amazed if they cut to us.
Slag off, guys, me brakes.
If they would just cut to us, in between that, I mean, that would be hysterical. And maybe I don't know if there's budget.
Goes have a go with his pit team again.
Yeah, it absolutely would be. Post-match pint tonight. Do check it out. It will be available for free, and that is because the hookup with Gravity Max as well. We're really looking forward to it over the course of the group stage. The Swiss system is brought to you by Gravity Max with the Anfield Wrap. Bearing that mind all the way through. Yeah, the books, I've just got it here. Listen, if you're around, we're doing the live shows in Edinburgh on Monday the 23rd, in London on the 24th, Liverpool play on the 25th, and then we're in the Beer Keller in Liverpool on the 26th, and it's Belfast on the 27th. Tickets are actually beginning to go relatively quickly.
I think Edinburgh's almost sold out, if not sold out.
There we are. So, but do check it out, and do buy the book if you get the opportunity to do so. There's going to be loads of stuff on that coming in a number of different ways, including me doing what I would describe as a wide spread of media, everything from the BBC to seen and unseen, the Anglican formal website. That's out now. Yeah, it was a really good interview as well, so do check it out. Johnny, who came and did that, thank you very much to him, and do read the interview and check all that stuff out. But yeah, do check the book out if you get the opportunity to do so. It's available in all the places that you buy your books, and it'll be distributed to you from the 26th of September.
There you go. While we're just having a break here, we do want to give a huge shout out to NordVPN, who are partnering with us on these Talking Reds. It is a fantastic service that we all use. I think I hooked you up. Mo did. How are you getting on with your NordVPN?
Oh, fantastic. The thing that I like using as well, because I'm one of those people who I often forget passwords.
Yes.
So I've got this little bank now where I can just sign into remember one password and go into a little thing, and it's got them all saved in there. So I can, whenever I need a little bit of a refresher, I'll just go in there and be like, oh, okay, that's what it was. Right, okay, cool. And go back in. Sometimes I'll get a little reminder when I'm putting in a new password or creating a new password. They're like, oh, do you want to save this in your little bank? And I'm like, oh yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do. Thank you. So yeah, it's just making my general internet usage a little bit more comfortable, a little bit safer, a little bit smoother.
That's fantastic. We could do with that at the Anfield Wrap. Neil and Jordan, who's filming, will tell you if you think the Anfield Wrap WhatsApp group is an exciting thing, it's largely A, where's the car park fob?
Yeah.
B, have you got the password for? Has anyone got the password for?
C, what's the code? The
code for the door. Or I'm stuck in the void upstairs and I haven't got my pass because someone let me out, which was me yesterday, which happens quite a lot as well. So at least one of those things. They can't do anything about the car park fob, I don't think.
If Craig's got it, well, Craig. If something's gone missing, just maybe NordVPN could just set up something that just messages him and Craig. Yeah. Just go to Craig first and worry about your options later, as Bob Paisley nearly said.
Yeah, I think even the fob being in Craig's pocket is beyond the good people at NordVPN, but they can apparently sort out your password issue amongst loads of other ways that they can improve your life. Internet security, being able to stream things that aren't available in your country by the click of that virtual location, and all the other stuff that are listed. If you go to nordvpn.com/TAW, you get 4 months extra on top of your subscription and a decent rate there as well. But thanks a lot to them. And so, what team would you go for then tonight then, Mo? Let's get back into sort of the action, because when me and Keo did the pre-match meal, we sort of ended up being like we just asked them to go again as much as a punishment as it was last night, but there's other positive reasons to do that. He seems to like a bit of an unchanged team. The press conference that you went to on Friday, he talked about the fact that at Feyenoord he didn't change too much. Yes. And he won't alternate just for the sake of it. And so what are you expecting him to do, and does that differ from what you would do?
Well, it's interesting because I think I would probably expect him to not do a lot. Even again, sometimes when you have a poor performance, it's just like, yeah, you get yourselves into this mess, you go and get yourselves out of it, and there might be an element of that. But then I also think about how he feels about the options, and we got to see some of that on Saturday. So, for example, when it was a midfield change, it was Trent Alexander-Arnold who went into midfield. It wasn't an Endo or someone like that, or a Morton or what have you. So you got to see how he feels about some of these options as well. And then the people who did come on didn't exactly cover themselves in glory either. So you've got that in as well. He kind of mentioned, well, he did pretty much straight up mention that Chiesa is going to be on the bench. He's going to be in the squad, but he's not going to be in the starting lineup. So he's going to be on the bench. But we expect to see him at some point. I always felt like this was the game that made the most sense for him to come in, because it's an opponent he knows very well. It's a place he knows very well. So I expect to see him come in at some point, but then the factor means that Salah's obviously going to start. So then you look at it and you think, well, is there a Diaz for Gakpo move there? Perhaps, but again, I don't think like Gakpo really put his hand up in the second half. So almost by default, you find yourself in the same team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have picked a different team on Saturday. I'd have picked a changed team on Saturday and then changed it from the bench to go back to the close to the side that started against Manchester United and the side that I would start against Milan and think he will start against Milan, and I would have started against Milan on Friday, if you sort of see what I mean. Like ultimately, I think there's a thing that everyone involved needs to think about, and I include the players who started the game, which is that had he literally started the team that is playing on the 62nd minute, the scoreline wouldn't have been any worse against Nottingham Forest. It wouldn't have been any worse. It might not have been any better, but it wouldn't have been any worse at the 60-minute mark. Do you see what I mean? It would, the worst case scenario would still have been 0-0. And you might have been a bit even more frustrated, feeling like this isn't clicking. But then when he makes the subs, he'd have changed to a side that had clicked at Old Trafford, and people might have gone from there. I feel really sorry for the players that came on, all 5 of them really in hindsight, because when he makes his first bank of changes, he doesn't make 3 changes, he makes 5, because he moves the positions of Szoboszlai and Trent. And managed certainly in Szoboszlai's case, it's a hell of an achievement. I think Trent was playing perfectly fine in the round, but I thought Trent then was practically non-existent, and I thought Szoboszlai somehow managed to get poorer, which took some doing. But he pulled it out the bag. But a lot of this feels like you're lashing lads under the bus, or the manager for that matter. I'm not. It's a learning curve. I think Szoboszlai started the season brilliantly. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold's a phenomenal footballer who's got so much to offer Liverpool in so many different ways. I think Bradley's great. I still really like Nunez more than a lot of other people do, but I really do like Nunez and think he's got lots, and that's why I would have started him.
Yeah.
I think that Gakpo has shown in a number of different ways exactly what he could offer Liverpool off that left-hand side, and it won't be the same as Diaz, but it might have been useful for the period against Forest when there was other players on the pitch. I'm very, I think it's going to take, bits of this are going to take a little bit of time for everyone involved to get used to. I include the players with their relationship with the new manager, what he's going to do. I think he will be unchanged tonight. I think it will be his Old Trafford team. And I'm all right with that because I think his Old Trafford team will suit this challenge in a couple of very specific ways. I think that we are in a situation where I think we're going to spend the season with Szoboszlai. When I say divides an opinion, I think he could well prove to be the opposite of a flat track bully. I think he might be better suited in the role that he's playing to be playing against the sides in the bigger grounds with the bigger budget teams. I think that I refuse to say better teams because I've seen Manchester United, but at the bigger grounds, bigger teams where they've got a certain style of play that might suit Szoboszlai in that role a little bit more. So and then what it might be a few times is that when you're watching at Anfield and you're thinking we should be able to pick the lock against Legion a bit like you need more out of Szoboszlai.
Yeah.
That's what I think might end up happening over the course of the campaign. And that's when maybe you end up needing a bit more from McAllister. But then if you take McAllister off on 60, and they to me, people don't like it when you say this because you can't prove it, but they to me just looked so much like pre-planned subs.
Yeah, I felt that too.
And but no one's going to explicitly go and say that, and I understand why people get defensive about that because it then feels like it's a criticism. And for me, it sort of is. I think you can do pre-planned subs if everything's going according to plan. If things aren't going according to plan, it needs to be a little bit different, and things weren't going according to plan against Forest.
Or if they were pre-planned, should you have just had a better plan?
Yeah.
So if I'm sort of alright with sticking with the pre-planned. I would just say, well, was it the right plan in the first place? Rather than should you have stuck with it, was it the right plan? I don't think it was.
And we've just done weekend. We've talked about the number of these games that I would describe as still live over the weekend, going into the last 10 minutes. Tottenham did the best to make it look like it wasn't still live. But the number of those games, there's only Southampton versus Manchester United was won by 2 or more clear goals. That means, if there's one goal in a game, the game is live with 5 to go. And if it's level, then obviously that's even more the case. So 9 of the 10 Premier League games were still live with 5 to go. And that's a thing that happens at various points of a Premier League season, no matter what the quality of opposition is. So maybe you want to be at your best for 5 to go, and you don't want to be at your best with 5 on the clock. But he gets to think differently, and he might be right and I might be wrong. I would just sort of make that point, and that's one to. And I don't think it's even necessarily going to be the case that next weekend. That's a very specific international break thing, I think, as well. It could be that next weekend it all looks a little bit differently, but I think that was. I think all the evidence from every game from last weekend, it was a weekend that everyone just had to get through. And so what you're getting through it plan, not necessarily you're playing great stuff plan.
Yeah, and his getting through it plan was to rely on the chemistry that the first 11 had built up over the first 3 games and say, okay, you are maybe a little bit rusty, but you guys know how to play with each other. They could go out there and do it. When the reality might have been that maybe giving a bit of freshness, maybe a bit more emphasis to some of the guys who have been championing at the bit might have been the way to do it. And then you say, okay, well, if this isn't working, like you say, we can make changes in a positive way. So people who are coming on have already got confidence and really know how well they're playing this season and go from there, rather than having to ask people who've not really done much to then go out there and save the day.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's all. But I think that tonight he'll play the Old Trafford team, and I think that's the right thing to do, and then go from there. And I'm just really looking forward to the game.
Well, hopefully you're looking forward to it as well. Wherever you're watching in the world, like I say, we would encourage you to come down to Gravity Max if you can. But wherever it is you're watching, hopefully you enjoy it, and hopefully we see a much better Liverpool performance and, of course, a Liverpool win. But thanks a lot to Neil, thanks a lot to Mo, Jordan for filming, and, of course, NordVPN for partnering with us as well. Check them out at nordvpn.com/TAW if you want to sign up or at least have a look at all the benefits, many of which we don't have time to discuss. But cheers, up the Reds.
Bring your digital life to a whole new level with NordVPN. Choose the fastest VPN on the planet and explore the internet without interruption.